You've probably heard the saying that people want to buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And yet, so often I see entrepreneurs hiding behind this veil of professionalism because they think that's what is expected of them, or they're actually afraid to put themselves out there for fear of judgment. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I see people just kind of vomiting their personal life and all the drama onto social media literally as it's happening. And the reality is that we do need to let people in. They need to see who we are so that we can have shared values. They can see, is this somebody I want to work with? Do I like this person's personality? Are you memorable? There's so many ways that you can connect with your audience. And the best way to do that is through storytelling. Hi, my name is Laura Beauprenant. I'm the founder of Lab Creative, the author of Brand Chemistry, and the creator of Brand Camp. And today I want to share with you my process for storytelling in my brand that will help you to curate your personal and professional stories so that you can build a deeper and more meaningful relationship with your audience and with your clients. And I'm so looking forward to diving into that topic with you. Now, before I do that, I want to just give you a bit of a lay of the land. So, I am going to be going live every Tuesday around this time. I will often have guests, and occasionally I'll be doing a solo show like today. So, what can you expect coming up? Well, next week I have Allison Croswaith, and we're going to be talking all about psychedelics. So, this is going to be a very enlightening session next Tuesday. A few weeks after that, I've got Andrea Sampson from Talk Boutique. We're going to be talking all about how to build your thought leadership through speaking. And then into March, I've got Melanie Sudka, the capacity creator, and we're going to be talking about all things around creating capacity and the hustle culture. So, those are just a few of the guests that I have coming up. And really, the point of all of this is to help you on your entrepreneurial journey, to give you insights, to bring interesting guests, and to maybe just shift your thinking around things in how you're showing up in your business. So that's just a little bit about what to expect. Please do comment. Let me know if you like the content. Let me know if you've got any upcoming guests that you would love for me to have, or if you've got topics that you would love for me to cover. I'm open to everything. So send me a message or comment below, and you can watch for that in an upcoming episode. Okay, so let's dive into what I want to talk about today. And if you do have questions or comments, pop them in. I believe I'll be able to see them through this app that I'm using to stream on multiple places. So fingers crossed this all works properly. Okay, so let's dive into this topic of storytelling and how I get started. So, I actually use a spreadsheet. I know it's not super glamorous, but it really, really works. And what I do, I have a spreadsheet that's specifically for stories. And I have different tabs, things like childhood and adulthood, motherhood, all the hoods, business. So I can kind of just keep the stories a little bit separate. So when something comes to my mind, I can add it. Now, the first column in this spreadsheet on each of these pages is just for stories. This is where I just do a brain dump. I'm not filtering, I'm just writing everything down. These stories could be funny ones, like the pet cat I had as a kid who adopted us. It could be a disaster story, like the time my boss broke my arm at the company Christmas party. It could be an embarrassing story, like the time that I came out of the girls' bathroom in high school with my skirt tucked into my tights. That was definitely very embarrassing. It could be sad stories. It could be heartbreak. It could be pain. It could be any of those things. Family stories, work stories, friend stories, travel stories, whatever those stories are. These are all things that I just brain dump into that first column in this page. That's the first thing. I don't filter, I just write these ideas down. Then the next column next to that is business relevance. So then I look through, I usually take a break between these two things because I know that, you just need to step away from things sometimes. So I'll go back the next day or a few days later and I'll look at each one of these stories. And this isn't a full story. This is more like point form, just so that I remember what that story was. And I'll go, okay, is this story relevant? Is there a teaching moment? Is there something that I can share that I learned that I think would really help my audience? Will it help them connect to me in a deeper level? Is it connected to something that I offer? So I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, I went on a flight with my dad, who's a pilot, and built his own airplane, flying down the Hudson River next to Manhattan at about 1,000 feet. It was an amazing, amazing adventure that we had together. And I was like, wow, we've never seen Manhattan from this view. I'm used to being in the streets. It's a little grittier. You've got the noise and the smells and the people and the honking and all of that. And you're looking up at these buildings. And here I am flying like right kind of at, just kind of above the height of these buildings, going, wow, I've never seen Manhattan like this. And immediately I thought, wow, that's just like in business when we're like in the weeds, we're like in amongst the buildings in New York. We're not flying above it. It's like that 30,000 foot view or that bird's eye view. And I suddenly had it and I could see New York from a completely different perspective. And I knew that I could tie that back to business, to branding, to what I do in a story. And I wrote a blog about it. I had great photos and it was really, it was a fun trip, but I could also see how I could use that in my business to show a little bit about me. And, even going back to, I grew up flying with my dad and he's always been a pilot. So it was really fun to be able to interject that story. So that's just an example of how I would, tie back that relevance to the story. And then whenever I look at that and I go, okay, I have a story. It's a story, it's relevant to business. I can tie these things together. Then I ask myself three questions. The first one, is this my story to tell? The second one is now the time to tell this story, right? If it's a gaping wound, it's probably not the right time to share it. And the third question is, will telling the story hurt somebody that I care about? Now, the last two can be a little bit tricky, but let's dive into that third one about hurting somebody else. This just isn't in alignment with me. There are so many stories that I've thought, oh, I could tell this story and it would relate and it would do all these things. But I actually know that that would hurt somebody else if I shared that story. So I don't tell those stories. That's me. And you have to use your own discretion as to what feels right with you. And it may actually be that that is a story to tell. And I will leave that up to your discretion. So now I have this spreadsheet of stories, right? I have a ton of stories that I may never ever use. And that's okay. I'm going to continue to add to this list. As soon as a new story comes up in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to add that to that list. So it's always going to be growing. And there'll be a lot of them that I will never share, but I don't delete them because there could come a time down the road where something happens and I think, oh my gosh, I've got the perfect story for that. So then I know it's already in there. And it's just a great place. You can even go back and just go, oh, look at all of these stories, right? Some of them are going to be great memories. Some of them are going to be maybe not great memories, but yet you're going to go, wow, like, look at what I learned from that thing or that experience. And, as they say, hindsight is 2020. So it's always interesting to be able to look back at some of these stories. So and I'm always adding to these. Like yesterday, I accidentally washed my face with my hair product. Clearly, I was a little bit distracted. And, my hair product is in a bottle just below where my face soap is. I obviously just grabbed the bottle and I started putting on my face. And I'm like, that smells like my hair product, not my face cream. So I realized, okay, what is this a sign of? Do I need to pay more attention? Do I just need to go, I just need to wash this off and start over? Sometimes we need those reminders. And, there you go. I'm sharing the story with you now, but it was hilarious. I just had to laugh at myself and go, I can't believe I just washed my face with hair product. I did go back and use proper soap. I also thought, man, that was a waste. My hair product is not inexpensive, as many of you ladies might know how expensive hair product can be. So, then Now you're thinking, okay, I've got all these stories. They're fantastic. Now what? So, what I do is I look ahead and go, what have I got coming up? Do I have a session of brand camp? Do I have a workshop I want to promote? Do I want to promote myself as a speaker? I've got a post coming out this week, a story about winning a motivational speaking competition in 2009 and that whole experience. And at the end, it's really about promoting me as a speaker, right? But it's in the package of a story from when I won that speaking competition. I even have a photo of me with my speaking coach. So I look ahead and go, okay, I've got these things. And then I find the stories that to me would fit with what it is that I want to talk about and promote. And some of them, I may never not use those stories for 6 months or 10 months, but at least I've got this story bank that I can use for upcoming events. And it's not me just going, oh my gosh, now I have to rack my brain. How am I going to talk about brand camp differently this time? I'm going to talk about me as a speaker, right? So it gives you all of this content that you can then pull from down the road. And then you can have things pre scheduled. Now, that spreadsheet is just the high level, right? You still then have to create and craft the story itself. And you would do that whether it's in your email or a social post, a blog post, a video, whatever that is, you would use those highlights in the spreadsheet to then create the actual story. And that's it. That's the process that I use for developing the stories and figuring out, is this the story to tell? Is it mine? Is now the time, so that I can plan ahead and have these amazing stories to be able to connect with my audience on a deeper level. Now, if this is something that you want to do more of and you're super interested, I'm actually running a workshop called Branding Through Storytelling, interestingly enough, on February 25th at 12 p.m. It is a paid workshop, but we're going to go deep. I'm going to help you craft these stories and figure out what are the stories to tell and what is the business perspective. So if you want to dive deeper and get some more of this in a workshop setting, then I would love for you to join me. I'll post the link. Let me find it. I did copy it here on my desktop so I could easily pop it in. I think everyone can see that wherever you're watching. If not, I'll make sure to pop it below in the comments. If you want to find out more, I would be happy to answer any of your questions. So if you do have questions, pop them in. I'll hang out here for a few minutes. I know there's a few people watching live. Say hi. Would love to know where you are and if that resonated, if you want to know more details about this storytelling situation. So I will hang out here. I'll give you like 2, 3 minutes because I know it can take a little bit of time to type. Maybe while I'm just waiting, let me think. Are there any other stories that I could share? Well, I mentioned, we'll see. I'll tell you this story, and if nobody's asked a question by then we'll call it a day. So I mentioned earlier about my boss breaking my arm at the Christmas party. Totally not sure if there's any business relevance, but I mentioned it, so I will fill in the blanks in that story. So I was living. Hi, Julie. Awesome. Thanks for joining me. Julie and I just met in the Bahamas. It's a little bit snowier and cold here, but awesome to see your face. And Peter, hey, Courtney, oh, my friend from Italy. We got up to some shenanigans living in London. There are many stories, Courtney, that many of them that I will not be sharing in a public place. So I need to add some of our stories into my spreadsheet. Okay, so the story about my boss breaking my arm. It was Christmas. I was living in Copenhagen. We went to a place called Base Camp. So it was like an old barracks and concrete floor. My job that night was to make sure that my bosses always had a drink in hand, which in hindsight, in my early 20s, maybe wasn't the best idea. Anyway, so there was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of, camaraderie and festivities. And then, I don't know, there was a cigar and some cognac involved. And then I was on the dance floor and my boss started spinning me around and he spun me out and let go. And I landed on my wrist. And I broke my wrist in 2 places, which was not a lot of fun, but Interestingly enough, that led me to become really great friends with one of my colleagues who I'm still in touch with today, who lives in Copenhagen, who I got to see last fall. So there was the beauty in that. Is there a business story? Not necessarily, but it actually led me to a beautiful friendship that I would not go back and change that arm breaking situation back in, oh my gosh, whenever that was, the early 2000s. So anyway, I don't see any questions, but I do see some comments. Thanks for joining me, Aaron and Courtney and Peter and Courtney. Don't worry, your secrets and stories are safe with me, especially because I was involved in most of those shenanigans. So thank you all for joining me, and I will see you here next week, same time, talking to Alison Croswaith about psychedelics and the entrepreneur journey. So looking forward to hopefully seeing all of you there. We can talk about, psilocybin journeys. We can talk about microdosing, all of those amazing things that are just coming to light and so many people are talking about. So looking forward to that. Thank you. We've got Justin and amazing Julie. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you here next week, same time. Bye, everybody.